slideshow. Okay, let's get started. Once again, welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic is Viva Mexico, celebrating wildlife south of the border. And today's presenters are Guide Development Director and Expedition Leader, Annie Van Dinther.
All right, thank you so much, Sunny. We appreciate that. And I also have another guide with me today, Lilia. She's going to be joining me as we learn about biodiversity in Mexico. Super excited about this. Lilia, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Annie, and thank you, Sonny, for the introduction. So as they were saying, my name is Lilia Gonzalez. I'm Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico City and have been working as an expedition leader for natural habitat since 2018 in the Mexican itineraries, mainly monarch butterflies, but also in whale sharks. So the idea of this webinar today is that I want to share with you some of the Mexican celebrations and some of the most emblematic animals and how they are related with our history and with biodiversity and conservation, just to know a little bit better what to expect or what to see when you are coming to Mexico in our travels.
Okay, so let's jump right in, because coming from Alaska, I've got a lot of questions about this. So first, tell us why today? What's the celebration today?
Well, the celebration today is actually a very special one for Mexicans, since today is the Independence Day here in Mexico. It's funny because in Mexico, we are the only country that actually celebrates the beginning of the Independence War and not the end of it. So we are, we like to celebrate. So why do we have to wait? Let's do it when it began, that it was September 16. So basically we celebrate 2 days, September 15 and 16, since the war started on the 16th very early in the morning. So that's why we have these 2 days, or we celebrate it at the night of the 15th and continue on the next day, of course. So in this war, it was Mexico against Spain, because remember that we were conquered by them. And there is a little bit of confusion sometimes of our Independence Day of celebration, because in some parts, most people celebrate on May 5th. So we only celebrate one battle in that day. It was a very important battle against against France, but it was only one battle in the state of Puebla, where I'm currently living.
Okay, so Ohio is a different celebration than Independence Day, which is today.
Exactly. So
All
today
right.
was against Spain, and May the 5th against France. So
Fantastic.
how we do celebrate?
Right. How does this happen?
Yeah, well, I want to share those pictures with you, since remember I'm from Mexico City, so that's the place where I celebrate all my life. In the first picture, you can see the Zócalo, or the main square in Mexico City, which is huge. They are going to put some lights on the buildings. They are going to be putting the colors of the flag, the green, white, and red, with the eagle and the snake. So that's our shield. So in that building, that is Palacio Nacional, or National Palace, the president that is in turn, he is going to go to that balcony, and he is going to start to say or remember the names of all the national heroes that gave us our independence. So they are going to be saying their names, and in between, the people is going to start shouting, "Viva Mexico, Viva Mexico." So the next name, and Viva Mexico, the next name, Viva Mexico, and we are shouting all the time Viva Mexico until the end, that everything explodes in lights and very colorful lights. So it's beautiful.
That sounds fantastic and similar, right? Like we here in the States for the 4th of July, we've got fireworks and we're celebrating. It's a beautiful time. So tell us, what exactly, how do you celebrate beyond the fireworks and everybody joining together? If you were to, get together with your family, how would that go?
Well, that's the part that I enjoy the most, since, well, of course, you can imagine that being in the main plaza is very crowded, and well, now with COVID, it's pretty much impossible. So when you are at home with your family, you can have mariachi music, people start dancing, and we have, of course, food and beverages. We have one of the most traditional ones is that dish that is on the picture that is called pozole with P, pozole. So the ingredients of that dish are very, very Mexican, since it's pretty much corn and sometimes chicken or pork and chili, of course, that it's going to be on the broad. So it's a very Mexican dish because, as you can see, it's very like green, white, and red. That it's the colors of our flag. So it's a lot of symbolisms in that too.
So if you were here in the States for the 4th of July, we would probably have a barbecue. There would maybe be some corn on the cob, and probably there's often food, just like you're saying with the flag here, there's often food somehow designed in the shape of a flag, or, having the colors like maybe blueberry and strawberry jello or something like that with some whipped cream, all kinds of creative ideas there. Now, the corn here is a little bit different than what we might think of as canned corn. This is probably what we would use, maybe the word hominy, to describe what this is like. And we're going to switch gears here from this celebrating to talking about what it takes to even have that present in an ecosystem. So what a better way to talk about Independence Day, right, than to talk about conservation and biodiversity in Mexico. So tell us about this picture here of the bee.
Well, that is going to tell us a little bit about of our ecosystem dynamics, because without pollinators, we cannot have chilies, for example, that it's an ingredient of the pozole and a very important ingredient in all Mexican food. And corn, for example, it doesn't need pollinators. It's going to be pollinated by wind, but in general, it's going to you need to have a very healthy ecosystem in order to have one of these delicious food in your table. So that's the idea, to celebrate this through our diversity.
Fantastic. So let's talk about Mexican biodiversity. Look at these fantastic animals here. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, those animals that we are seeing here, the idea is it was a mix of one of most common animals that you can see in Mexico, but also blended with very traditional dishes here in Mexico too. So even when we are not going to have time to talk about all the different species that we have in the pictures here, the idea is to show you why Mexico is so diverse, and the species that you is more probably that you are going to see if you travel with us here to Mexico. So Mexico is a mega diverse country because it's one of the countries with a very big percentage of endemisms. Endemisms, or an endemic species, means that it's a species that you are going to find only in that country, or sometimes even in a very specific part of that country. So it's a unique species in that place. Mexico has a lot of that in the different categories. Also, we have around the world, we are only 17 countries in the whole world that are considered mega diverse. So it's really impressive, because only those 17 countries are going to be concentrating 70% of the world's flora and fauna. So it's crazy, it's huge.
Wow, so we have to slow down for that for just a second and really take that in. So you're saying 17 of our world's countries hold 70% of the biodiversity.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
is,
And yes,
that's
it's
amazing.
amazing. And also you can see those countries are in green in that map.
Mhm.
Mexico and United States are on the list. And one of the most important questions to solve in here is why Mexico has so many species. And in this first map, we can see that. Because as you can see, the position of, geographically speaking, of Mexico is between a temperate zone, which is pretty much United States, with mildly and a little bit cold climate, and then the tropical zone that is going to be well, warmer and with more species. So we are in between both. So it's a perfect combination to have a huge biodiversity. And also in the second map, as you can see there, what you can see, Annie?
Well, just looking at it, I was going to say, like, there's so much. There's you've got some mountains here, you've got mountains over here, you have this marine ecosystem here, and then what I think is really interesting is you clearly have something also going across rather than just up and down. I feel like I'm like a weather person now, right? This is, I think this is unique. I think we should talk about it. So tell us about these zones here.
Those zones are the mountain ranges here in Mexico. As if you pay attention a little bit in that picture, you are going to see that we have a mountain range running next to the Gulf of Mexico. That is the Sierra Madre Oriental or Oriental Sierra Madre. The other one is near or bordering the Pacific coast. And the other one is going to be crossing the country, and that's the Transvolcanic Belt. That place is so unique that is one of the places that we are going to be visiting during our Monarch Butterfly itinerary. So as you can see, Mexico is so diverse because we have mountains all over the place. So it's impressive.
Yeah, so this picture here tells us a little bit more in detail about these specific places. Describe this to us.
Well, as you can see, at least we have 7 different ecosystems in that list. But to be honest, Mexico has all different ecosystems in the world except for one, that is the tundra. It's the only ecosystem that we do not have, and you know very well that ecosystem. So it's the only one that we do not have. And Mexico hosts the second largest number of ecosystems anywhere. And we are talking about a place pretty much the size of Alaska.
We just figured that out today, actually, right? That Alaska is about 760,000 square miles and Mexico is about 660. I mean, other way around, sorry. Alaska is 660, Mexico is 760,000 square miles. So Mexico is a little bigger than Alaska, but it's the second largest number of ecosystems anywhere. I've got to ask, what's the first?
Well, the only country that has bigger biodiversity than us is Brazil.
That
It's
makes
quite
sense.
effective, right?
Yeah.
Yes, owning the
Now,
Amazon.
yeah, let's get into this. Tell us about exactly where we are here with these different species.
Well, as you can see, we have the different groups. We have amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and plants. So in all those different categories, Mexico is ranking the top 5. So for example, in amphibians, we are the number 4 in the whole world. In reptiles, we are the second. And depending of the species, we can be the first one. For example, we have the most rattlesnakes in the whole world. Talking about mammals, we are the 3rd place. And in plants, for example, we are the number 5. But in cacti, for example, we are the 1st place in the whole world. So it's a huge responsibility.
I love the way you say that, you know, it's just something to celebrate, but it is also something to take very seriously, because that's a critical to the health of our whole planet. Now, one of the things that you said defines mega diversity is how many of the animals are endemic. And so this is what we're looking at here, correct? Tell us more about this picture.
Well, as you can see in that picture, we on the light colors, we have the percentage of the endemic species, and the darker colors are non-endemic. So as you can see in each of the categories, we have a lot of species that grow only here in Mexico, sometimes in a very located part of Mexico. So that makes even more difficult to take good care of them, because we are talking about very fragile ecosystems sometimes when the population is the cities are still growing. So it's a lot of effort from different ONGs and from the government that has been taking place during the last years.
That's really exciting to think about all the endemic species. I know that it's one of my favorite things when I go to an area to look for the animals that I can only see in that place, right? That's one of the things that makes traveling to those places so special. But then there's the animals that just symbolize a place, right? The more maybe stereotypical animals that we think of when we think of a place. For example, if somebody is going to talk about Alaska, they're probably going to talk about bears, right? So let's talk about some of these emblematic species for Mexico.
Good. We have a little delay. Good. So let's start with this one that is one of my favorites. That's the Xoloitzcuintle. Xoloitzcuintle, it's a Aztec word.
Okay.
Can you repeat it?
I had to spell this out for everybody because it's such a hard word. I mean, we would say it I don't know, I couldn't even do it, but Xoloitzcuintle is how you say that word. Did I do it right?
More or less.
Okay.
We have to still practice.
Yeah. Tell us, what is this? I mean, it's in a beautiful picture, but what are we looking at?
Good. So the Xoloitzcuintle is the Mexican hairless dog. And probably if you saw the movie Coco, you are going to remember the dog. That it was the dog that was with the boy to follow him to the land of the dead, right? But for the Aztecs, it was actually a god. Oh. So and it's the picture that we have on our left. That's the Xolotl god. Xolotl was one of the Aztec gods, and it's so related to Mexican culture that actually Frida Kahlo, as you can see on the right picture, she has some paints with her Xolo dogs because she loved them. So it's very, very related. And as you can see in these other pictures, she had many of them. And also there is Diego Rivera with some of these dogs. And if you go to Mexico City, I highly recommend to visit one of the museums near Xochimilco Gardens area, where the descendants of those dogs are still in there. So
that leads me to a question. Are these dogs still wild? Were they ever wild?
They were wild when they in the Aztec time. Then they were a little bit in danger of extinction, since the people, well, to be honest, there are some of these dogs that are not very pretty. So people most of the time prefer other kind of dogs. But there was like I don't know, probably a Mexican pride kind of thing, that there are some people that started to breed them and taking care of them. So now it's pretty much easy to have one of these dogs. And actually, it's a very interesting thing, because in Russia, for example, they are quite famous. Russia is a country with more of these dogs than even Mexico.
Wow. And I understand they're very special to you as well.
Yes, they are very special to me. In the first picture on the left-hand side, the one with the red T-shirt and the first one with the pink collar, those are my dogs.
Okay.
And the one in between them, it's also Xoloitzcuintle, but with hair. So sometimes when they have puppies, they can have hair or hairless. Many years ago, the breeders thought that the Xoloitzcuintles with hair were not good, so they get rid of them. But nowadays, they discover, well, they are going to continue the genetic biodiversity, so they keep them. So the one that it's in the second picture, that's my dog, Nichim. Nichim means flower in Mayan, and she's welcoming me after a Monarch Butterfly trip.
Oh, that's fantastic. So these dogs actually have to do with an animal that I think people probably would not be able to guess. Let's talk
Yes.
about this little monster, this water monster here. I love these guys. I think they are so cool looking, and I had no idea that they were also ingrained in Mexican culture. So tell us about these ajolote. Did I say it right?
Ajolote. In Spanish, ajolote, and in Nahuatl, or the Aztecs language, is Axolotl. So these animals are amphibians, and one of the most important characteristics of these animals is pretty much a salamander. But if you remember the life cycle of a salamander, they are going to stay when they are juveniles in the water, and then they are going to come out to land, right? In this stage, when they are in water, they look like this, but then they are going to move to water, to land. But these guys, they are going to be young forever. They are not going to make that step to land. So
Okay.
the most impressive thing and the link about these animals with the Aztecs, for example, is that you remember the god that I told you before, Xolotl? Well, Xolotl, in one of the Aztec tales, he was running out trying to escape from other gods that they were trying to capture him, and he hid on water, in the water. So he transformed from land to the water, and he adopted that shape of an axolotl. So that's why this monster of the water, that's the name in Nahuatl means, is related with this god too.
Okay, so this is connected. I love this because these animals are so cool looking. Let's learn a little bit more about them.
Yes, the most impressive thing about these animals is that it's not only one species. The pink one, the one that we have below, the scientific name is Amblystoma mexicanum. And that's the one that it's endemic from the region of Xochimilco, where the Xochimilco gardens are in Mexico City. But the other ones, as you can see, they are a little bit different. You can see on the gills, you can see on the in the colors, and they are going to be found in different rivers or different streams in the central Mexico part. So it's more than one species, but we are talking about the same genus.
Okay, and now I understand that these animals have a little bit of like a superpower. So let's talk a little bit about that. That looks to me like they can actually regrow a hand, a limb. Where's the line?
Well, the line, it's a little bit confusing because there are some experiments that they can grow a spinal cord, that they can grow again heart, that they can grow again some parts of the brain. I think it depends of the percentage of damage. But the superpower is that they are going to undifferentiate the tissue or the cells that are around the injured, they are going to make a step back into a cell differentiation, so they can be differentiated again into whatever they like.
Wow.
So that's the superpower. You can see here in that image that you have the trauma. In this picture, they cut part of the hand. Then the tissue is going to be regenerating. They are going to grow again muscles and nerves, then the cartilage, and then they are going to have the full hand. That's the most impressive thing too, because if you remember, for example, lizards, if you cut the tail or they lose the tail, they are going to grow another one, but it is not going to be with the same shape, and it's not going to be exactly the same. I mean, you can tell that it loses the tail in one part or one stage of their life. But these ones, they are going to grow exactly the same. So no scar, no nothing. So it's really impressive, really, really impressive.
So this
and
is important
yes,
for
sorry.
medical research, right?
Yes, it's very important nowadays, and has been for the last 10 years, at least here in Mexico, for medical research. Actually, there is a place in the United States, since it's quite easy to have them in captivity in aquariums. There is a place in Kentucky that they have a lot of these animals growing, pretty much for medical research purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second picture, that's how you can see them sometimes in the central mountains in here in Mexico. So it's quite interesting.
So you're saying that I might be able to see one of these if I go on the Monarch trip?
Probably.
Okay.
If you behave well.
Okay. Well, that part is questionable, but here we go. Let's look at this beautiful animal, the Monarch. I actually was there years ago and had the privilege of guiding this trip, and it, oh my goodness, so incredible. So tell us about the Monarch, and I think you might need to teach me how to say these different words.
Yes. Since the monarch butterflies, as you can see, are quite abundant in the overwintering places, in those places, there are like a mixture of cultures. So we have the Nahuatls or the Aztecs and the Mazawa, that they were different tribes.
Okay.
So for the Nahuatls or the Aztecs, the word for monarch butterfly, it's Quetzalpapalotl.
Quetzalpapalotl?
Quetzalpapalotl.
Quetzalpalotl. I'll keep trying.
Very good. And in Mazawa is Hephe. It's a little bit easier. Hephe.
Hepe, much easier.
Very good. So there are many legends and many a lot of symbolisms, since they arrive pretty much for November 1st and November the 2nd. We know about this migration, that these butterflies, they are going to be in Mexico for the overwintering places. They are going to migrate north, reach Canada, and go back to Mexico again. So we have many other webinars when we explain those kind of things, and we are going to go much, much deeper if you come to our itinerary. But the thing that I want to show you here is how these monarchs are linked to the Aztec people, for example. This temple, it's in Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan is an archaeological site that you can visit also as an extension when you come to the monarch trips. And in one of those columns in this temple, you can see, that's a zoom in. And if you click another time or two, we can see that it's a quetzal. That you can see the two eyes, the bill, and then the legs and the tail. But in the chest, it has a butterfly. That's a monarch. So that's why the name of this temple is Quetzal, that's the name of the bird, Papalotl, butterfly.
So deeply woven into the culture for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So
impressive, right?
it's incredibly impressive, and it's It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful
Yes,
to
it
see
is.
the connection between the art and the culture and the endemic animal. This is another one. Tell us about the jaguar.
Exactly. Well, the jaguar, we know that it's not endemic from Mexico, since you can see them pretty much in all Latin America. Um, but it's very related to, in this case, our Mayan culture. Also to the Aztecs. If you go to Teotihuacan, you are going to hear about the jaguar warrior. So these guys, they had like masks with jaguars. But in this case, I wanted to show you more into the Mayan culture. In the Mayan culture, they call it Balam. That's the way they say jaguar, Balam.
And so when you're saying Mayan, we would say that Mayan.
Sorry?
So you were saying it's part of the Mayan culture, and we
Mayan
would
culture.
Mayan culture. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. This is beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
tell us about the distribution of the jaguar.
Well, now the distribution in Mexico, it's as you can see, there are a lot of efforts from the Mexico government to try to protect this species. In darker colors, those are the potential current distribution of this animal. The priority regions are circled in red, and the dots are the sites where they are going to be doing the census of the jaguars. So here in Mexico, it's considered at risk of extinction, even for in the red list is near threatened. So we can say that it's in Mexico we are like a step forward into conservation of this species. And also, of course, hunting a jaguar it's against the law, and it's protected fully by Mexican laws. So it's a
So
very big effort from not only the government, also organizations like WWF is one of the most important organizations that are into the protection of the jaguars, not only in Mexico, as you can see, also in the rest of Latin America.
So I think this is really interesting because I feel like people maybe wouldn't have thought or known that the jaguar used to be up into the United States. So this is
Exactly.
interesting. I can't imagine if they were still there. I feel like there would be some very different things happening in those areas. So that's interesting. Now, when we move from the jaguar, tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, here we are looking a natural reserve that is in the southern part of Mexico, in the state of Quintana Roo. That's the reserve of Balam. Balam in Mayan culture means Lord Jaguar. So it's a beautiful place to visit. And in one of our itineraries, we go to that particular place to see
Whale
the
sharks.
whale sharks. Exactly. I have a little delay in here, so I cannot see the picture. There you go. Wonderful. So going to that particular place, as you can see also in all that green area that is in the map, it's a project that has been planning with WWF of trying to make a reserve on all the Mesoamerican reef between Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras to make a reserve for not only the reef, also for the whale sharks. So it's a huge project that is going to involve 4 countries.
Wow, that's very, very cool. I have never seen a whale shark in the wild. So that is so that is something that I would really like to do. Tell us about this.
It's impressive. Actually, here in Mexico, we have the biggest concentration of whale sharks in the world. There are many others we have in Australia, there is in Galapagos too, but here it's much easier to see them, and you have a bigger percentage of success to go out and see them. We know that it's nature, we cannot give you 100%, But being there with this big animal, being so gentle next to it, it's really a life-changing experience. But in this trip too, as we saw in the map, it's a natural reserve, not only for the whale sharks, also because it's a huge and very rich ecosystem with mangroves and the reefs. So we have a lot of bird species like flamingos and frigates. So it's really impressive to see. And the color of the sea, wow, it's amazing.
It looks so, so beautiful.
It is.
Okay.
Your turn.
We're on to one of my favorite animals ever. I just actually had a guest message me. Hi, Tim, if you're watching. He messaged me because our new catalog came out, and he was like, "Where are the gray whales?" Page 67, in case anyone wants to know. But he said in that message, that was one of the most incredible trips of my life, and he's done quite a few with us, and just getting to see the gray whales was so very special to him, and I think it is to anyone who has the privilege of going to see these animals. And I have to admit, yes, they are in fact a Mexican species because they are born there, even though we Alaskans would like to claim them. Tell us about the gray whales.
Well, the gray whales is a species, as Annie was mentioning, that it is going to migrate between Alaska and Mexico, but they come to have a very specific, or to go to a very specific reason. Here in this map, you can see that's a distribution in the whole world. So as you can see, it's a northern hemisphere species, and it's protected by Mexican laws, and it's one of the species of whales that is at least concerned of conservation. So they are in very good numbers if you compare with other species of whales, of course, and they are recovering. They have sometimes good years and sometimes bad years, but in general terms, they go from from the very top of Alaska. They are going to go down all the way to Baja in Mexico. They go to a very specific place, in this case, the San Ignacio Lagoon, because in that bay, the salinity of the water it's higher than in the regular ocean. So with more salinity, sorry, my dogs are barking.
That's okay.
So with more salinity, that is going to help the calves to float. So it gives less work to moms. So that's why they come to here to Mexico to have their babies. If we can see the next picture, they are so confident from the humans that they are going to bring their calf to the boat. It's like presenting their babies to our guests. So it's really amazing. Yeah. Can you give him a bless, please?
Yeah, exactly. And there's another cetacean that is critically important to Mexico. My daughter actually did a presentation on these for her 6th grade class, and she loved learning about them because they're so special. Tell us about the vaquita.
Well, the vaquita is one of the small. Well, it's the smallest cetacean in the whole world, and I must say that it's also one of the most endangered species. Why? Because it sadly has a very, we were saying about endemic species. So this is a very endemic species from Mexico, but also the distribution is very, very strict. So this animal is very difficult to see it. That's in the map we can see the distribution. As you can see, it's in the very northern part of the Sea of Cortez, very close to the Colorado River Delta. So of course it's a zone where a lot of fishermen are. We have sometimes a little bit of pollutants coming from the river. So this animal, it's very difficult to see, and of course it's very difficult to study since it's a very elusive animal. So the population has been dropping in the last years because of people is trying to catch a very particular fish that is the totoaba, because it's very well paid in China, I think. Well, in those countries. So because they are using the bladder, so they are trying to capture these other fish, and the vaquitas get entangled accidentally. So it's a shame, but of course it's critically endangered. It's protected by Mexican laws, but it's a lot of things to protect. So that is why WWF has been working with the local communities, trying to show to the local people the importance of this animal, and trying to make this switch in their way of living, and trying to save the vaquita.
And my understanding is that one of the things that World Wildlife Fund is also helping with is to help collect old nets that have gone to the bottom of the ocean floor, right? So maybe what happens is, because it's illegal, they will drop their nets so that they don't get caught, right? But then that old gear is actually just as dangerous as gear that's currently being used. So my understanding is World Wildlife Fund is working to help clean up that area in efforts to reduce as many sort of problems that could be there for the vaquita. So we're crossing our fingers and saying our prayers on that one, to hopefully have that animal survive this. We'll switch from the serious topic of the vaquita to maybe what some people think is a little bit less serious. Let's talk about a very important plant, agave.
Yes, probably you remember that we just said that Mexico is the first place in cacti species, right? So agave is very important for Mexicans, and I'm pretty sure for the rest of the world, since are the plants that we used to have for the extraction of tequila and mezcal, right? Tequila comes from the blue agave, and mezcal can come from many different species of agaves, depending of the location here in Mexico. But in the next slide, we can see.
Just a second. There we go.
Oh, okay. There you go. So I cannot see that. Oh, there you go.
We've got the fields here of the agave plants.
Exactly. So as you can see, it's a plantation, but of course it's a monoculture. That means that you have only one species in there. When they are blooming, it's a lot of effort for the plant to bloom. So all the sugar is going to the flowers and to grow the quiote. If we press to see the next slide, to the next picture, you are going to see the inflorescence of the agave. So when they imagine to grow that huge thing, so of course it takes a lot of energy to the plant, and after making that, the plant is going to die. So if you are producing tequila, of course you don't want your plant to die. So the people that produce tequila, they are going to chop the inflorescence, and they are going to have that agave for a longer time. But the thing is that they have to do the pollination manually. So they are creating clones of those plants, making it more susceptible to diseases. But if they have the flowers, these guys are going to come into the picture. These animals are the pollinators of agaves, and mainly for the agave species of tequila, and for tequila and mezcal. So without them, no tequila, no mezcal. Imagine that.
I suddenly love these bats.
Exactly. But the thing is that if the producers are chopping the flower, they are not going to have food. So now there is a project in the National University of Mexico that is called Bat Friendly Tequila and Mezcal. So if you go to that website, you can find a list of producers with that label in their bottles. So that means that producer is letting 5% at least of their crops to make well to flower, and then that means it's going to have food for the butterflies, for the bats, and also they are going to have healthier crops for more mezcal or tequila. So it's a very nice project that is going to let us celebrate our independence and many other celebrations without guilty.
I love this, and I love that we're giving just a really concrete way to help with the biodiversity in Mexico. I think that's fantastic. So if you're out there and you have a favorite drink that involves tequila or mezcal, this might be something that you are interested in. Okay,
Yes.
well, Lilia, I think there's still probably so much more that you could teach us about biodiversity, and I hope we go to this subject again in one of our webinars, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. I learned so much today, and I think that's probably true of our guests. Thank you. And at this point, Sunny, we can open it up to questions if there are any questions out there.
Well, I just want to thank you both. That was fascinating and very fun. And I love the way you integrated all the culture, the food, the animals. I really did learn a lot as well. Before we start the Q&A, I'd like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the questions field in your control panel. But I'll start us off with one. It seems like, and I may pronounce this incorrectly, but the Vaquita, lots of interest in that. Have you ever seen those, or do you ever see them on NatHab trips?
No, Annie, you want to answer that since you know better that area?
Well, you know, unfortunately, if you were to look up the number of the vaquitas right now, you would see that there are estimated to be 18 left in the world. That's 1/8. Now, when we study marine mammals, you know, imagine studying something on land, right? You can see its behavior, you can see where it is, and even if it goes into a forest, you can go into the forest. With marine mammals, when we do a study of them, we're counting when we see them at the surface, which is actually a very small part of their life. And so I'm hopeful that maybe there are more than 18, but even if there's double the number, right? Even more than double, even if there's only 40, it's a very, very low number. Also, maybe you've seen harbor porpoises. They're much larger than the vaquita, but they come up, they go down. So you have to be just like looking at exactly the right spot. They come up, they go down, and maybe you saw a glimpse of it. So they can be incredibly difficult to spot. And honestly, I wouldn't necessarily want to spend much time because of their low numbers in that area, because I would just want to reduce as many pressures as possible on that species.
Also, our itinerary to see the gray whales is in Baja California South, like pretty much on the tip of the peninsula of Baja. And remember that the vaquita is at the very north, so it's out of our range in that itinerary.
Got it. Got it. A lot of people are also very interested in knowing what the best time is to see the monarchs.
The monarchs, it's always in winter. Our season, it's mainly from January to March. I think that there are some talks about starting it on December, probably. Probably, I don't know, Annie, if you have any news about starting on December. But my opinion, the best season or the best time in that season, in particular from the whole winter, in my opinion, is around February, because you have a little bit more activity. But it depends on you. I mean, at the beginning of the season, they are going to be at the clusters. You are going to have more idea of the amount of monarchs that are all concentrated together in one place. And probably at the end of the season, you are going to see them with a little bit more of activity. But of course, you have you have to run a little bit with the risk that they are going to go soon. So those are the kind of things that we have to decide.
Always something good.
It is
Yeah.
always, I think it's really one thing that our guests can trust when they look at our catalog or look at our website. We really do work very, very hard to choose the best time for wildlife. So if our trip is going during that time, you can trust that we've put some research into it and that's the time to go.
Well, I was lucky enough to take that trip a couple years ago, and I will say, just like your presentation, it did a wonderful job of incorporating the food and the culture and the art, and it was just a wonderful trip all around. So I highly recommend that one from my personal experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of that as well, there's a lot of tequila lovers out there who want to understand more about the bat-friendly options for drink. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. You can go to that website, www.batfriendly.org. And in that website, there is an option to see the list of the producers with tequila or mezcal brands that are in this project. So if you go to the websites of each brand, I'm pretty sure that you can buy them by internet, and the bottle can be delivered directly to your home. That's the best way to do it, even here in Mexico, because if you go to the supermarket in here, these kind of brands and the project in general is sadly not open to the public, because most of the biggest producers, they are probably not interested, or their production is so big that they cannot give 5% of their crops to the bats. So most of the time are smaller producers that are being part of this project. So my advice is to go directly to the website and try to follow the instructions to buy directly to the producers. And also that's good because I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a better price than if you just go to the supermarket.
Nice. So another question about the vaquitas. People are wondering if there are other threats aside from nets. Is climate change impacting them? Any more you can talk about that?
Yes, we have to consider that most of the time it's not only one factor that is threatening an species. In this case, yeah, well, it's the nets, but of course sometimes is the traffic of vessels. They can be hit sometimes by boats. I mentioned that the delta of the Colorado River is very near to their area. So sometimes if the river has more pollutants, concentration of pollutants in it, of course it's going to damage the vaquitas and their environment. With all the climate change, of course the food sources are moving, and if they have a very restricted area or range area, and the food is moving, sometimes it's complicated for them because they have two options: or they follow the food, or they are going to die without any food. So we live in a changing world, that's for sure, and that's nature's law: or you survive or you are going to die. So of course they are facing many other threatening factors in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we have time for one more question. A lot of folks are really interested in the whale sharks. One specific question is, do they migrate, or are they always in that special spot?
Well, to be 100% honest, we don't know. Sometimes, since they are not mammals like the whales that they have to go to the surface and breathe, so they are going to be down there pretty much all their lives. So they are going to be near the surface when they are in these places with food, when they are feeding on their feeding grounds. That is the case here in Mexico. So that's why, because the phytoplankton and the plankton in general, they are going to be near the surface and they are going to be grabbing and filtering the water to get the food. But when they are not on their feeding grounds or in the feeding season, they can be down there very deep and we don't know exactly where do they go. And they have the whole ocean, the whole world to go. So there are some migrations that, for example, they can put some track devices, satellite track devices. So they have been there are records of these migrations, very long migrations, but probably could be that single individual and not the whole population. Probably some part of the population are going to stay in that place year round. To be honest, we don't know.
This is research that needs to be done, right?
Yes.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the exact number of years because I won't say it correct, but recently there was a population of whale sharks discovered off the coast of Hawaii, and it wasn't something that was counted at, maybe, I'm going to guess 20 years, but don't quote me on those numbers. So we are still very much so learning about these animals, and there's work to be done in that area for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the last question we have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for closing comments. Do you want to start, Lilia?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for all your questions, for your interest in our Mexican biodiversity. And please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate in asking through NatHab or me directly. It's always a pleasure to share.
Well, thank you, Lilia, for joining me today. I learned so much, and I just absolutely love that. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. We wouldn't get to do this every day or every week if we didn't have you guys tuning in. And I just want to really encourage people that if they are interested in any of these trips, the whale sharks, the gray whale trips, or the monarch trips, they should reach out to their adventure specialist, and they will definitely tell them more about exactly how to go and learn more from Lilia on one of these departures. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next Thursday, where my friend Sophia, who is also in Mexico, is going to ask lots of questions about Alaska, all those things that you always want to ask but aren't quite sure about. So we're going to be talking about that next week. And Sunny, thanks for making this work for us. We appreciate your efforts.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you so much for taking time to present for us today. I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I'll conclude the webinar. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow or very soon, hopefully.
Thank you.